Chapter 513. As the inherited secret techniques of the demon heart hall, the mental demon rotation technique, and the 9 forms of soul assimilation were definitely the pinnacle of mental strength among the same techniques. In Chu Xiu's opinion, they were even stronger than the Xiahou clan's spirit control technique. In the past, when Chu Xiu used the soul-subduing Hades song of the 9 forms of soul assimilation, it could even temporarily affect Xiao Liandong, a martial arts master. Now that Chu Xiu had recovered to his peak, it was naturally not a problem to use the soul-subduing Hades song to deal with He Zhan, a unity of heaven and man realm martial artist. He Zhan rubbed his head as he crawled up from the pile of broken chairs, his eyes filled with horror. Although he was a little rash and easily angered, he was still knowledgeable. This guy's mental strength secret technique was so powerful that he didn't even have the chance to react in a single exchange. However, He Zhan still hardened his tone and snorted coldly. "You only know how to use this kind of trick. Fight me head-on if you can." As he said that, He Zhan was unwilling to admit defeat and wanted to charge forward. However, at this moment, Lin Mingtong said in a deep voice, "Let me do it." When he was under Peng Hu, Lin Mingtong often quarreled with He Zhan. Between the two of them, one was impulsive while the other was rational. Usually, they wouldn't be on the same page. However, when facing outsiders, they were brothers who had gone through life and death together, and were willing to entrust their backs to each other. A pitch-black spear that was as tall as 2 people was held in Lin Mingtong's hand. With an unparalleled aura and whistling strong wind, it smashed down at Chu Xiu. The powerful aura was simply unbelievable. It was unleashed by a seemingly skinny and weak martial artist like Lin Mingtong. This time, Chu Xiu didn't use the 9 forms of soul assimilation. He merely formed seals with both hands and displayed the Great Vajra Divine Strength Dharma form. Stellar energy erupted around him, condensing into a strange figure. Half of it was illuminated with Buddhist light, while the other half was filled with demonic aura. The evil Buddha statue's palm descended, and the power of Buddha and demonic interweaved and erupted, directly blasting Lin Mingtong away. Mahavajra form. Chu Xiu had already used the incarnation of the Great Vajra Mountain godly power during the Demon Dao meeting. Thus, he did not mind revealing this technique. Defeating 2 experts under Peng Hu in 2 moves, Chu Xiu's strength was completely revealed. If this had happened elsewhere, the surrounding people would definitely be shocked by Chu Xiu's strength and not dare to make a move. However, these bold bandits who had dared to challenge the Northern Yan dynasty in the past, although they were shocked by Chu Xiu's strength, they were also enraged and wanted to attack Chu Xiu. He Zhan and Lin Mutong were their brothers. Now that their brothers were beaten up, what should they do? Even if it was a martial Dao grandmaster in front of them, they only had one thing to do, and that was to attack. But right at this moment, Peng Hu snorted coldly and said, "All of you scram for me. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough?" Looking at He Zhan, who was still standing there in a daze, and Lin Mingtong, who was lying on the ground, Peng Hu lightly snorted, "Are you dead? If you're not dead, then sit back down." Hearing Peng Hu's reprimand, He Zhan and Lin Mingtong finally sat back down obediently. However, He Zhan's chair had already been crushed by him. He Zhan looked around and finally stood beside Lin Mingtong with a downcast expression. Peng Hu stood up and cupped his hands at Chu Xiu and laughed. "Young Master Lin is indeed a young talent of the Yinma clan. Your strength is indeed extraordinary. If Qilian village wants to survive this crisis, we will have to rely on you, young Master Lin." With Peng Hu's eyesight, although Chu Xiu had only made 2 moves, he could still see Chu Xiu's true strength. This was also because Chu Xiu had shown mercy. Otherwise, Lin Mingtong and He Zhan would have been seriously injured even if they did not die. Although Peng Hu had no intention of blaming Mei Qinglian, he still doubted whether this kid could be of any help to the Qilian stockade. However, now that he had seen Chu Xiu's strength, Peng Hu no longer had any doubts. Any sect that had such an outstanding disciple would definitely be nurtured as a treasure. His status was even higher than the martial arts masters in the sect. Mei Qinglian had sent the most outstanding young talent of the Yinma clan. She had given him enough face. Chu Xiu casually cupped his hands and said, "Leader Peng, you're too kind. The Saintess has asked me to help you solve the crisis. I will naturally do my best. However, I also need your village's cooperation." Otherwise, I will not be able to turn the situation around by myself. Pang Hu nodded and waved his hand. Set up the banquet. Let's talk while we eat. Qilian Village's predecessor was the Northern 36 Bandits. To put it bluntly, the Northern 36 Bandits were bandits. No matter how strong they could not avoid some bandit habits, just like now. A large table was placed in the main hall. More than 10 of Pang Hu's trusted subordinates were present. Eating large pieces of meat and drinking large bowls of wine may have become the Qilian Village's habit. However, this was the first time Chu Xiu saw such a scene. It was very novel. Qilian Village's way of eating large pieces of meat was no longer considered eating large pieces of meat. It was practically eating whole animals. Chicken and ducks were whole, but there was even a whole roasted mountain tiger. The rest of the delicacies such as bear paws and venison were innumerable. Pang Hu poured a bowl of wine for Chu Xiu and drank it in one gulp. He said in a deep voice, Mr. Lin came all the way to Qilian Village to help. Everyone, stand up and show your appreciation. The Qilian Village bandits were best at drinking. One by one, they raised their bowls of wine. He Zhan and Lin Mingtong were even more eager. They were defeated by Chu Xiu in one move. Even now, they still felt a little embarrassed. If they can't beat you, they can at least drink, right? However, Chu Xiu only drank one round out of courtesy. He used his inner energy to suppress the alcohol. He put down the bowl and said, Chief Pang, it's time to talk business. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Pang Hu also put down his bowl. He Zhan and Lin Mingtong could only look at each other gloomily, and put down their bowls as well. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, Qilian Village's current crisis is not the situation, but the reason why Qilian Village is in such a crisis. First, we have to find the source. Then we can do things. Pang Hu frowned and said, Mr. Lin, what do you mean? Although Pang Hu looked rough and uncouth, he wasn't stupid. In the past, the 36 bandits of the north were all annihilated. Only Pang Hu was left to struggle at death's door. This was not because he was a coward. It was because Pang Hu was more sensitive to danger. That was why he avoided the danger in time, and preserved a trace of strength for the 36 bandits of the north. But this time, being forced into such a state by the loyalty-gathering manner, Pang Hu was really at a loss and could not figure out the situation. Chu Xiu paused and said, Chief Pang is recuperating in the dense forest of Liaodong and regaining his strength. He also befriended the 13th Prince, Xiang Chong, to relieve the pressure from the imperial court. This is a good move. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Pang Hu's face showed a hint of pride. Pang Hu originally planned to recuperate, and then continue with his old business. However, he met Xiang Chong by accident and befriended him. So he used Xiang Chong to make the imperial court not pursue him, the surviving member of the 36 bandits of the north. The last time Pang Hu met Xiang Chong, it was after Xiang Chong came to Chu Xiu's aid with the grandmaster of the Yinma clan, Sheng Tianyao, who was an official of the imperial family. So it could be said that Xiang Chong and Pang Hu's meeting was indirectly facilitated by Chu Xiu. However, at this time, Chu Xiu suddenly said, But Chief Pang, you're going the wrong way. Pang Hu frowned and said, What do you mean? Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, The land of Liaodong is not suitable for development in the first place. After Master Pang recovered your strength, you entrenched yourself around Liaodong County, and set up a branch. Although you didn't plunder like the 36 bandits of the northern land in the past, and instead collected the tributes from passing merchants, it still caused some people to be dissatisfied. Pang Hu snorted coldly and said, I've done enough benevolence. My Qilian village may be bandits, but we also abide by the rules. When they pass through Liaodong County, I only need to collect money and I'll guarantee their safety. If they can pay more money, I can even get my brothers to escort them all the way to their destination. Are they still dissatisfied? In fact, Pang Hu learned this trick from Chu Xiu. After Han Bao returned to Qilian village, he naturally talked about how he lived all these years. Among them, his cooperation with Chu Xiu gave Pang Hu a lot of inspiration. Pang Hu was not a stupid person. After the 36 bandits of the north were annihilated, Pang Hu also reflected on why they were annihilated. In the end, Pang Hu came to a conclusion. The 36 bandits of the north were annihilated not because they robbed the imperial court and various martial arts forces, but because they did not abide by the rules, broke the rules, and offended everyone they could offend. That was why they were annihilated together. Therefore this time, Pang Hu used the method of cooperation between Chu Xiu and Han Bao in Shangmang Mountain to collect tolls. He did not go overboard. Moreover, Pang Hu also added a bodyguard service. As long as they could afford it, the bandits of Qilian village could even serve as escorts. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Chief Pang, you misunderstood me. The dissatisfaction I'm talking about is not the dissatisfaction of the passing merchants, but the dissatisfaction of the Morgue village. It's because you, Chief Pang, are blocking the Morgue village's way." "What do you mean?" Chu Xiu dipped his wine in wine and drew the rough terrain of the northern Yan on the table and said, "Under the development of Nie Renlong, the Morgue village is almost famous in the northern Yan Jianghu. Although it is not strong, it is very famous. Nie Renlong is an expert in managing his reputation. Ordinary people seek profits first, then fame. But Nie Renlong is good at using his reputation to win profits. Now that the Morgue village has accumulated enough fame, Nie Renlong naturally wants to gain some practical benefits. But the Morgue village is known for being benevolent and righteous. How can they attack and destroy a family? Therefore the simplest way is to create an alliance. The Morgue village will be the leader of the alliance to do something. If it succeeds, as long as Nie Renlong's methods are right, the alliance will not disband and will still serve Nie Renlong as the leader. Now looking at the Morgue village's actions, it is obvious that their goal is to advance north. And Chief Pang's Qilian village has become the target of the Morgue village's alliance. They must get rid of the stepping stone. Chapter 514. Chu Xiu's words shocked and angered everyone present. Qilian Stockade Village used to be awe-inspiring in the past. When the 36 bandits of the northern land were still around, they dared to challenge the imperial court of the northern Yan kingdom. Who would have thought that they would be treated as a stepping stone by others now? Hejan was so angry that he slammed the table and scolded, "Bastards! Those shameless people from the Morgue village said they wanted to exterminate the bandits and restore peace to Liaodong. It turns out that they wanted to expand their power and use Qilian village as an excuse." Chu Xiu said lightly, "There is no such thing as unconditional love and hatred in this world. The Morgue village has never been so benevolent. Otherwise, it would not have developed to where it is now. The moon-worshipping cult is in the West Chu and the evil pole sect is in the northern land. If the Morgue village really wanted to help the people, why didn't they find trouble with the moon-worshipping cult? Wouldn't it be better to find the weaker evil pole sect? In other words, you are all from Qilian village and not the 36 bandits of the northern land. When the 36 bandits of the northern land were at their peak, would the Morgue village dare to find trouble with you?" Everyone present nodded, but Lin Mutong suddenly asked, "Mr. Lin, if the Morgue village wants to develop, why did they choose the northeast direction instead of other places?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "It's simple. Because the Morgue village can't afford to offend people from both sides. In the west, there is the Huangfu clan of Pingyao in western Yan. Although the Huangfu clan is not very strong, they have many trump cards as one of the oldest among the 9 aristocratic families. In the south is the Divine Martial School of Southern Yan. Although the Divine Martial School is not strong, Yan Huainan is an outstanding person. The Morgue village doesn't want to offend Yan Huainan. Therefore, as long as the Morgue village has the intention to develop in these two sides, they will fight back. In the northeast direction, Liaodong County is vast but sparsely populated. It is close to East Yan and Qilian Stockade comes from the 36 bandits of the northern land. This in itself is a very good excuse. If I were Nie Renlong, I would also choose this direction as my target." Pang Hu said in a low voice, "Then does young Master Lin have a way to break out of this situation? The Memorial Village has joined forces with more than 10 forces to attack together. In terms of numbers, our Qilian Stockade Village can't compare. Nie Renlong is a slippery fellow. Although I have the strength to deal with him, he rarely fights face to face. The northern Yan martial artist Han Baxian is Nie Donglio's master. This time they even invited Han Baxian. When I fought with him, both of us were injured. My injuries were probably more serious. Currently, our Chilean stockade cannot compare to them in terms of high-end combat power and numbers. Hearing that even Han Bashian was involved, Chu Xiu could not help but ask, "Nie Donglu is also involved this time?" Lin Tong said, "Of course, and the one who planned to annihilate our Chilean stockade village was Nie Donglu himself. Nie Renlong, his father, spared no effort to build up Nie Donglio's reputation. Even the attack on Chilean village this time, most of the plans were arranged by Nie Donglu." A cold light flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes. This time, he was not only here to help, he was also here to take revenge. Pang Hu's gaze towards Chu Xiu was still a little doubtful. When mentioning the memorial village, why did Lin Yi also look murderous? It seemed that this young talent recommended by Mei Qinglian was really reliable. He had already gotten into character so quickly and stood on the Chilean stockade's side, treating the memorial village as an enemy. Chu Xiu thought for a while and said in a low voice, "If we want to break out of this situation, we need 3 steps. Retreat, divide, and take advantage of the situation. However, the world is unpredictable. Even the Taoist divination masters cannot take 1 step at a time and 3 at a time. I can only take 1 step at a time. If there is a problem in the middle, then I can fix it." Everyone present looked at each other. In fact, most of them did not know what Chu Xiu meant. For these guys who used to be bandits, they were usually good at 2 things, killing and robbing. It wasn't that the Northern 36 bandits were all idiots, but most of their personalities were just like that. They firmly believed that strength was more important than stratagems. Once their strength reached a certain level, they could ignore any stratagems. Although this was the truth, it was a pity that the 36 bandits of the north were not strong enough before they were annihilated. It was the same for the current Chilean village. Under the premise of insufficient strength, they could only rely on strategy to turn the tables. Pang Hu knocked on the table and said, "You said retreat, what do you mean?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "It means exactly what it means. Temporarily avoid the sharp edge and retreat first. This way, we can exchange for a chance of survival." As soon as Chu Xiu said this, everyone present suddenly exploded. Hejan immediately stood up and said, "Absolutely not. The first master has worked with us for so many years and finally established a foothold in Liaodong County. In the end, you are telling us to give up these foundations and retreat directly. What is this? If admitting defeat could solve the problem, we would have admitted defeat to the morgue long ago. Why would we still invite you here?" Chu Xiu spread his hands and said in an indifferent tone, "Retreating is not admitting defeat. Also, Liaodong is not suitable for development in the first place. The land is vast and the population is sparse. Moreover, we are surrounded by enemies on all sides. The morgue in the east, the sect of divine powers in the west, the Huangfu family in the south, and the northern floating snow city in the north. Which of these forces has a good impression of the Chilean village? It's fine if no one makes a move now. Once someone makes a move like this, the Chilean village will not even have a place to run. Everyone, I am not from the Chilean village. The Saintess asked me to help. I am here. I have also come up with the idea. As for whether to use it or not, it is entirely up to you." Pang Hu frowned and thought for a moment. He directly slammed the table and said, "All right, we will do as Mr. Lin says. From now on, the Chilean village will listen to your command. Do not doubt the people you use." Pang Hu was not good at these things. It would be fine if someone was good at it. Of course, Pang Hu did not trust Chu Xiu, but Mei Qinglian. He believed that even if Mei Qinglian did not help him, she would not cheat him. That was why Mei Qinglian sent Chu Xiu at this time. It proved that Chu Xiu definitely had the ability to turn the situation around. Chu Xiu said in a low voice, "If that's the case, then I would like to request Chief Pang to lead your brothers to break up and give up on Chilean village. Everyone will retreat to the extreme north, but do not enter the territory of the northern fluttering snow city. We must maintain an extremely low profile. Only then can we proceed with the second and third step." Pang Hu nodded and waved his hand. After the banquet, all the martial artists who belonged to the Chilean village retreated. There were not many people in the entire Chilean village. There were only about 10,000 people. Among them were the elites of the Chilean Iron Cavalry. There were actually less than 1,000 of them. That was why it was extremely easy for them to retreat and hide. At this time, in a manor outside Liaodong County, Nie Renlong and Nie Donglu, as well as more than 10 martial artists in the Unity of Heaven and Men realm were all there. They were also holding a banquet, but it was much more exquisite than the banquet in the Chilean village. Nie Renlong sat in the middle of the main seat. Nie Donglu sat beside him. The people around him were the leaders of some of the martial arts forces in the east of Yen. At this time, they were constantly complimenting Nie Donglu. This time, it is all thanks to the young master's divine strategy. His plan was impeccable. Only then could we completely suppress the bandits and murderers. That's right. According to the young master's plan, we will advance step by step. I reckon it won't take long for us to completely devour the Chilean village. It is the fortune of the Loyalty Village to have such an outstanding person like the young master. It is also the fortune of the east of Yan's martial arts world. Recently, the young master has been accumulating his strength, and did not make a name for himself in the martial arts world. That allowed Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian to enter the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. When this matter is over, the young master will definitely enter the top 5 of the Longhu leaderboard. This group of people did not compliment Nie Renlong. Instead, they complimented Nie Donglu. It was not that they were insensible, but they knew that Nie Renlong had already planned to push Nie Donglu out since the Loyalty Village had caused such a huge commotion. As the manor master of the Loyalty Manor, Nie Renlong's personal strength aside, his reputation was big enough. Hence, Nie Renlong no longer needed some empty reputation. On the other hand, Nie Donglu was not even in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. Hence, Nie Renlong had to push him back to the top 10 again. Only then would Nie Donglu be qualified to compete with the young talents. Moreover, Nie Renlong had the intention of testing Nie Donglu in this operation. He only had one son. The future of the Loyalty Village would be handed over to Nie Donglu. Although Nie Donglu had the experience of joining forces to annihilate bandits and murderers in the past, those were only small fights. This time, the Loyalty Village had joined forces with more than 10 major forces in the east of Yen, as well as 2 martial Dao masters, Nie Renlong and Han Baxian. These people were all under Nie Donglu's command. This was a world of difference from before. However, it was worth praising that Nie Donglu's performance this time was really good. Although his performance was not amazing, he was cautious in his plan and fought steadily. He uprooted all the Chilean village's branches and finally forced them into the mountains and forests of Liaodong. The only mistake was the battle between Han Baxian and Crimson Face Heavenly King Pang Hu. Both of them were injured and Nie Renlong did not even have the chance to launch a sneak attack. In the past, Pang Hu was not the most famous among the 36 northern bandits. However, Hu knew that his strength was so strong that he could actually fight with Han Baxian until both of them were injured. However, it did not matter. Chilean village was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The Loyalty Village could completely destroy it if they attacked together. The reason why the Loyalty Village Alliance had not made a move yet was because a force battle would easily force the other party into a life and death struggle. Although according to Nie Donglu's calculations, the net would not break even if both sides were to die. At most, there would only be a few cracks. However, Nie Donglu was a cautious person. It was better to have as few losses as possible. Nibbling away step by step was the safest way. At this moment, someone from the Loyalty Village suddenly came to report that all the Chilean village members had retreated. This immediately stunned everyone present. Chapter 5:15. Although Quillian Village had set Chilean Village as their target, they had never underestimated Chilean Village. Both Nie Donglu and Nie Renlong were like that. As the only survivor of the 36 bandits in the north, Chilean Village's ability was not weak. That was why they had set up a banquet here to celebrate their temporary advantage. Who would have thought that the people of Chilean Village would take the initiative to escape? Everyone present looked at each other. They were all prepared for the next few fierce battles, but who would have thought that they would win so easily this time? They were stunned for a moment. At this time, a middle-aged martial arts practitioner in a black brocade robe suddenly stood up and said with a smile, Manor Master, young Manor Master, since Qilian village has escaped, does this mean that we can take over Liaodong County's territory? Nia Donglu frowned slightly, feeling a little unhappy. These guys were really useless. They had just gotten a little bit of benefit, and they were already prepared to share it. The reason why Qilian village could form this so-called alliance was because of its reputation. As for the other reason, it was because of benefits. Qilian village promised that as long as the territory was conquered, they would not take any of it. All of it would be given to these forces. Of course, the premise was that these forces would not leave the alliance. This was also Nie Renlong's cleverness. Qilian village would always be the one that opened the door for the people in the pugilistic world. Invading and conquering other territories was not done by Qilian village, but by other forces in the alliance. If the bad reputation was carried by these forces, it would not harm Qilian village's reputation. Moreover, once Qilian village needed it, the alliance would immediately gather. This way, they would have face. Why not? Hence, this warrior's request was not wrong. However, he seemed to be a little too eager. This made Nie Donglu feel a little unhappy. Nie Renlong smiled and said, "Don't worry, Miao family head. What belongs to you will definitely be yours. I'll send someone to investigate later. If those people from Qilian Stockade Village have really withdrawn from Liaodong County, we'll start to discuss how to distribute the territories." The Miao family head, Miao Chunmao, belonged to a Miao family that did not have a strong foundation in the east of Yen. The reason why the Miao family was able to rise was because of Miao Chunmao, an expert at the unity of the world realm. Therefore, Miao Chunmao couldn't wait to divide the territory and strengthen the Miao family. Upon hearing Nie Renlong's words, Miao Chunmao smiled and cupped his hands together. "Manor Lord, please don't blame me. I was a little too impatient." Nie Renlong waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter, it's just human nature." After sending the others away, Nie Donglu snorted coldly and said, "This group of people is really impatient. We haven't completely annihilated the Qilian stockade, and they're already thinking of getting a share of the benefits." Nie Renlong said indifferently, "Everyone in the world values benefits. If there are no benefits, who would still work for you? Donglu, remember, the best people to make use of in this world are actually those who have desires in their hearts. Conversely, those who truly have no desires are the most difficult to deal with." Nie Donglu said in a deep voice, "Yes, I understand." However, Nie Donglu paused and said, "Father, what's going on with the Qilian stockade? Why did they suddenly retreat? I have investigated. Pang Hu is not someone who is afraid of death. I was even afraid that if he forced Qilian stockade village into a corner, the other party would fight to the death. Why did Pang Hu suddenly retreat? Could there be a trap in this?" Nie Renlong stroked his beard and thought for a moment before saying, "People's hearts can change. After experiencing the destruction of the 36 bandits of the northern lands, the current Pang Hu is no longer the Pang Hu of the Qilian Iron Cavalry of the past. Moreover, Pang Hu should have noticed the difference in strength between the two sides. Even if he doesn't think for himself, he has to think for the other Qilian stockade warriors. There's no benefit for him to fight the Loyalty Villa alliance to the end, so it's normal for him to retreat now. However, even if there's a trap, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we've waited for so long. A few more days won't make a difference. Send someone to the Liaodong forest to investigate clearly, then we'll make our move." Nie Donglu nodded and said, "All right, I'll ask someone to do it now." When the people from the Righteous Manor investigated the Qilian stockade village in the dense forest of Liaodong, they found that it was indeed deserted. This made the martial arts forces in East Yen suddenly look wild with joy. The Loyalty Villa had already promised that they did not want all the territories in Liaodong County. All of them belonged to the other martial arts forces in the alliance. The leaders of these martial arts forces were not idiots. The Loyalty Villa was smart, but they were not stupid either. Naturally, they knew what the Loyalty Villa was thinking. However, it wasn't a bad thing for them to stay in the Loyalty Manor alliance. It was good to lean on a big tree. In the past, these forces were naturally not weak, but they could not be compared to the top martial arts forces like the Shenwu sect and the Huangfu clan. But now, if they stayed in the Loyalty Villa alliance, They would have some confidence when they faced these top martial arts forces again. At this time, in a restaurant in the state capital of Liaodong County, Chu Xiu, Hejian Lin Mutong, Han Bao and more than 10 elite Chilean stockade warriors gathered together. Han Bao reported to Chu Xiu the information he had recently investigated. Pang, who had already led most of the Chilean stockade warriors to hide in the north, avoiding the tracking of the loyalty villa. As for Hejian and the other elite Chilean stockade warriors, they were ordered by Pang Hu to listen to Chu Xiu's orders. After Han Bao finished explaining the situation, Hejian snorted coldly. Now, as you wish, Chilean stockade has already given up our family's foundation. We are being chased like stray dogs. What do you think we should do now? Chu Xiu did not care about Hejian's tone. He only said faintly, the higher we stand, the harder we fall. Let this group of people be happy for now. When the time comes, they will naturally cry. Since the concession was successful and the loyalty villa did not suspect anything, then we should move on to the next step, which is division. Although a group like the Morgue Manor Alliance seems to be strong, any alliance is actually scattered. Everyone is united because of benefits or some kind of goal. But in the end, everyone is selfish. Their priority is still themselves. As he said this, Chu Xiu took out a stack of information and said, this is the information of those forces that joined the Loyalty Villa Alliance. We don't need a lot of them. We only need to pick one to divide and make use of it. That will do. Lin Mutong frowned and said, temptation or what? Chu Xiu took a look at the forest passage and said, based on Chilean stockade's current state, what can we use to tempt them? Even an idiot would know that at this time, they will definitely stand on the Loyalty Villa Alliance's side. Of course, we have to threaten them. Among these forces, the one with the biggest loophole is the Miao family of Yendong. The Miao family itself is not strong and their foundation is very weak. It is only because of Miao Chunmao, a great master in the oneness of heaven and men state, that they rose. In the Loyalty Villa Alliance, most of the forces were personally invited by Niaran Long. Only Miao Chunmao joined on his own initiative. This person is so enthusiastic about this matter because he wants to occupy a foundation in Liaodong County, so that the Miao family can have more foundation to rise. This kind of person is the easiest to deal with. His family is his sore point. Seize his whole family and make use of them. If they are disobedient, let his whole family die. Simple and direct. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, everyone at the scene suddenly shivered. It was not because of Chu Xiu's words about killing the whole family, but because of Chu Xiu's tone when he said such words. The Chilean stockade bandits were not good people, especially when they were the 36 bandits of the northern land. They had killed many people. However, they had only killed for the sake of plundering, unlike the current Chu Xiu. He had used an unusually calm tone to say such words, as if killing an entire family was as simple as eating and drinking. Seeing this, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. No wonder Lin Yi was the most outstanding disciple of the younger generation of the Devil Path. His heart was truly vicious and ruthless. At this time, they finally understood why the righteous sects clamored to eliminate the diabolism and defend the Tao. It was not because they had nothing better to do, but because this group of people from the diabolism was really King terrifying. However, at this time, Lin Mutong said with some hesitation, Master Lin, what if that Miao Chunmao does not care about his own family and snitches? If we do this, wouldn't it be a little against the rules of the Jianghu? After all, we shouldn't implicate family members. Chu Xiu glanced at Lin Mutong in surprise. This group of people from the 36 bandits of the northern land were actually so pedantic. They still cared about the rules of the Jianghu? Chu Xiu said lightly, the saying that you shouldn't implicate family members is a joke. Your family enjoys the benefits that you snatch, but when someone seeks revenge, you say that you shouldn't implicate family members. Isn't that a joke? I am from the diabolism. You all know the reputation of the Inma clan, so I don't care about the rules. If you are worried about your reputation, then we can forget about this matter. Hearing this, Lin Mutong hurriedly said, no problem, we will do as Master Lin said. Right now, the Great Master had said that everything must be done according to Master Lin's instructions. In the end, if there were any problems because of his suggestion, He would not be able to bear the responsibility. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "In that case, everyone follow me to the east of Yen first." Everyone present looked at each other and nodded. However, at this time the way they looked at Chu Xiu was a little different. This group of people who used to be bandits were not good people to begin with. They were very vicious, so they did not take Chu Xiu seriously at the beginning. Even when Hejan was defeated by Chu Xiu in one move, he was still a little unconvinced. However, when Chu Xiu revealed his plan just now, everyone realized that the vicious that they, as bandits, understood could not be compared to Lin Yi. Chapter 516. 10 years ago, the Miao family in Lini, East Yen was still a very weak family. They were not bullied all day long, but at least in the whole East Yen, they were not ranked. Only in recent years, when Miao Chunmao stepped into the unity of heaven and human beings realm, did the Miao family feel better. Although in the eyes of the real top gurus, the integration of heaven and human beings could only be said to be not bad, in East Yen, the integration of heaven and human beings was enough to be called a master. Therefore, the Miao family could be considered to have really risen. At night, the Miao family's mansion was brightly lit. The whole Miao family had been holding a banquet to celebrate the real rise of the Miao family in recent days. Miao Chunmao had sent them a message, asking them to prepare to move the Miao family to Liaodong County. The martial arts forces in the East Yen were not weak, and the division of forces had been very perfect. Therefore, if the Miao family wanted to rise in the East Yen, they had to compete with others. The decline of a force could represent the rise of another force. However, except for Miao Chunmao, the strength of the Miao family was too weak to compete at all. Therefore, Miao Chunmao could only think of another way to take the initiative to join the Righteous Manor Alliance, lay a foundation in Liaodong, and then move the family there. In this way, the Miao family could really develop. At this time, Chu Xiu came to the gate of the Miao family with Hejan and the others, but they were surprised to find that there was not even a guard in the whole Miao family. Chu Xiu and the others looked at each other. Was the Miao family too happy or too arrogant? How could the defense be so lax? Of course, it did not matter even if there was a defense. Anyway, in the eyes of the warriors in the unity of heaven and human beings realm, it was nothing. When the door was opened, some servants along the way wanted to scold Chu Xiu when they saw him. However, Chu Xiu looked at them and used his powerful spiritual force to directly freeze them there, making them unable to say a word. It was not until Chu Xiu pushed open the inner door of the lobby that the people of the Miao family found Chu Xiu. They were stunned for a long time, and then a middle-aged man with a flushed face came out. He walked towards Chu Xiu and shouted angrily, "Who are you? Trespassing into my Miao family. Are you tired of living?" However, before he could reach Chu Xiu's eyes shone with a dim light. In an instant, a powerful spiritual power surged into the middle-aged man's head. Bang! Like a watermelon bursting, red and white juice splashed everywhere. Everyone present was about to cry out in surprise, but an extremely terrifying demonic aura was released from Chu Xiu's body. The cold and deep aura immediately suppressed everyone's cries of surprise. Chu Xiu put a finger in front of his face and made a shushing gesture. "Xiu, don't talk. If you make any more noise, you'll die." The warriors of the Miao family immediately fell silent. They covered their mouths and didn't dare to make a sound. At this time, Chu Xiu wore an expressionless black iron mask. The demonic aura around him was monstrous. Coupled with the horrible corpse on the ground, he was just like those horrible demons who ate human blood and drank human blood in the legends. "Who is Miao Chunmao's son?" Chu Xiu asked. No one present answered. "If you don't tell me, I'll start killing them one by one." Chu Xiu said this in a calm tone, but it made everyone present tremble at the same time. They immediately pointed out a young man. Looking at the trembling young man, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't worry, I won't kill you. Your life or death depends on your father. Now write a letter to your father, and ask him to go back to Yendong. As long as your father makes the right choice, you don't have to die." Looking at the trembling young man writing the letter, Hejan and Lin Mutong looked at each other. Was it really that simple? It seemed that it was really that simple. At this time, Miao Chunmao was still in Liaodong. But it was very easy for him to go back to Yandong. Pang Hu led the people of Qilian Stockade Village and split up. Although the Loyalty Manor Alliance was still searching for them, Pang Hu and the others deliberately kept a low profile, so the Loyalty Manor Alliance had little effect. Different from the other aristocratic families who brought a large number of people to join the alliance, because the Miao family was too weak, only Miao Chunmao came to join the Loyalty Manor Alliance. In this kind of search, his effect was limited, so Miao Chunmao was very free during this period. After receiving the news from his family, Miao Chunmao didn't feel anything unusual. He thought that the Miao family was ready to move to Liaodong. So Miao Chunmao went straight back to the Miao family. When he opened the door of the Miao family, he felt something was wrong. Miao Chunmao was now the pillar of the entire Miao family. Now that he was back, the Miao family should have someone to welcome him. Why was there not even a shadow? However, Miao Chunmao still subconsciously pushed open the Miao family's door. What he saw was a group of people from the Miao family. Although they were not tied up, their faces were pale. There was also Chu Xiao and the others who had moved chairs over and sat in the middle. Miao Chunmao's first reaction was to run. But before he could move, Chu Xiao said lightly, "If you run, I will kill your whole family. If you stay, you still have a chance to live." Miao Chunmao's movement froze. He turned around and closed the door. He shouted at Chu Xiao in a low voice, "You are from Qilian Stockade Village? Family should not be involved." Qilian Stockade Village ignored the rules of Jianghu. Do you really not care about anything? The Miao family was considered low profile in the past. Other than Qilian Stockade Village, Miao Chunmao really could not think of anyone else who would do such a thing. Moreover, Miao Chunmao had never thought that Qilian Stockade Village would do such a thing. It was not that Miao Chunmao was naive. It was because even when Qilian Stockade Village was one of the 36 bandits of the north, they only robbed the imperial court and some big sex caravans. Qilian Stockade Village had never done such a despicable thing like using family members to threaten others. Moreover, Miao Chunmao subconsciously thought that even if Qilian Stockade Village wanted revenge, it would definitely be against the Memorial Villa. How could his small Miao family be noticed by the other party? Chu Xiao said lightly, "Jianghu rules? Qilian Stockade Village was almost forced to death by your Memorial Villa alliance. Why would they care about Jianghu rules? There has never been a rule in Jianghu that only you can kill my whole family, but I cannot kill your whole family." Miao Chunmao's face showed a trace of bitterness. He said dejectedly, "Everyone, I Miao Chunmao admit defeat. You can kill me if you want, but please leave a trace of my Miao family's bloodline. Moreover, even if you really want to wipe out my Miao family, other than being able to vent your anger, there is not much meaning. It was the Memorial Villa who wanted to wipe you out, not my Miao family. Even if I die, the result will be the same." If Miao Chunmao was a heartless person, he could have just left and told Nie Renlong about this. He would have cried and complained that he had made such a great contribution to the alliance, but in the end, he was implicated and his whole family was killed. Regardless of whether Nie Renlong was a hypocrite, even if it was just for his reputation, he had to treat Miao Chunmao, who had sacrificed so much for the alliance, well. It was a pity that Miao Chunmao was not a heartless person. He could not let go of his family, his wife and children. Chu Xiao said lightly, "Of course, I know that killing you or your whole family will not solve anything. Otherwise, do you think you can still stand here alive? I will give you a chance to not die." "What chance?" Miao Chunmao asked. Chu Xiao narrowed his eyes and said, "It's very simple. Stand on my side and lie in ambush at the Memorial Villa. Do whatever I tell you to do." Miao Chunmao's expression suddenly changed and he said quickly, "You are sending me to my death again. Moreover, if I really become a spy, it is equivalent to offending the entire Memorial Villa. There will be no place for me in the entire northern Yan." Miao Chunmao was considered a veteran in the Eastern Yan martial arts world. He had personally seen how the Memorial Villa had risen, so he was very clear about what kind of person Nie Renlong was. If he betrayed Nie Renlong, he would definitely end up very, very badly. Chu Xiao said coldly, "If there is no place for you in the northern Yan, then go to Eastern Qi or Western Shu. The world is so big, do you think there is no place for you?" This is a single-choice question. You have no choice. If you become a spy, you may die, but your family can live. If you don't, I will send you and your whole family to hell. You should know which one to choose. Cold sweat appeared on Miao Chunmao's forehead. In the end, Miao Chunmao had no choice but to agree. If he agreed, he would die in the future. If he didn't, he would die right now. So it was very easy to choose. Chu Xiu stood up and said, "Don't even think about telling Nie Renlong about this and asking him to come and save your family. I'll arrange for people to stay here. Once the situation changes, they'll at least take your family down with them. Killing people is always faster than saving people, even if the other party is a martial Dao grandmaster. Besides, the next task I will give you is not difficult. You only need to use words to provoke those people in the martial arts world of Eastern Yen to go to the extreme north. It will be best if you can get into conflict with some of the martial arts world forces in the extreme north. Remember, the bigger the conflict, the better." Miao Chunmao was not stupid. He immediately knew what Chu Xiu was planning. He looked at Chu Xiu with a hint of surprise. This guy, he obviously wanted to make things worse. Chu Xiu looked back at Lin Mudong and the others and said, "The division has been successful, so it is time for the last step. This step will take a little longer. Lin Mudong, take some people to guard here. If something goes wrong, immediately slaughter the Miao family. Hejan Hanbao, follow me back to Liaodong Prefecture." Among Pang Hu's men, Lin Mutong was the more rational one. Chu Xiu could rest assured leaving this place to him. As for Hejan, he was impulsive and easily angered. Although he was loyal to Pang Hu, he could easily ruin things. It was better to keep him by his side, and only be responsible for the fighting. Chapter 517. The north of the country of Yen was the most desolate place in the entire northern Yen. It was even more sparsely populated than Liaodong County. Although its area was several times the size of Liaodong County, it was still collectively known as the North. There were no counties or counties. Further north of the northern lands was the northern drifting snow city. The entire northern lands was considered as the sphere of influence of the northern drifting snow city. As for the places further north of the northern drifting snow city, they were basically desolate and uninhabited. Only a force like the Great Guangming Temple would establish their sect in such a place, and in the name of tempering their will. At this moment, in a small town in the north of the country of Yen, a disguised Pang Hu was drinking with Chu Xiu. Pang Hu frowned and said, "Mr. Lin, you asked the Chilean stockade to retreat. We have already retreated. You said you wanted to break up the Morgue Village alliance, but in the end, you only instigated a small character. Now at the last step, you said you want to borrow power. Whose power do you want to borrow?" During this period of time, the Chilean stockade was scattered, but the Morgue Village still managed to capture some of our brothers. There were more than 100 casualties. The Chilean stockade does not have much time to wait. Chu Xiu poured a cup of wine for Pang Hu and said faintly, "Don't be anxious, Chief Pang. Haste makes waste. This time, I not only want to save the Chilean stockade, I also want to severely damage the Morgue Village. As for the layout, of course, we need to be more cautious. As for whose power do I want to borrow, it's very simple. Since I have lured the Morgue Village to the north, naturally I want to borrow the power of the northern floating snow city." Pang Hu was not an idiot. He immediately understood what Chu Xiu meant. However, Pang Hu frowned and said, "You want to sow discord between the Morgue Village and the northern floating snow city? But Nie Renlong is not an idiot. Nie Donglu, that little bastard, is also very shrewd. They will not fall into the trap. The Morgue Village should know that their main goal now is to occupy Liaodong County and annihilate the Chilean stockade. It is not wise to provoke the northern floating snow city at this time." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Nie Renlong and Nie Donglu are indeed not idiots, but they can't resist the temptation of greed. The higher they stood, the harder they fell. The dozens of forces in the Loyalty Village Alliance took over Liaodong County, without bloodshed. Didn't they want to go further? Since ancient times, the alliance had always collapsed internally. Otherwise, why would I let Miao Chunmao be a spy? At that time, if one faction took advantage of the situation, how could the other faction sit still? How could the Morgue stop them? I know this group of people very well. When you let them profit, they will support you. But when you stop them from profiting, they will not be so obedient. Pang Hu took a deep look at Chu Xiu. Were all these fellows from the demonic path so sinister? But from Pang Hu's point of view, these fellows from the righteous path were not easy to deal with. Otherwise, why would the Kunlun devil cult lose so badly? Gulping down the wine in his cup, Pang Hu said in a deep voice, "Then I'll wait for a while longer. I hope that you won't disappoint me. I believe in Mei Qinglian. The person she recommended shouldn't be wrong." Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't worry, Commander Pang. You can use this time to recover from your injuries. At the last moment, there will still be a fierce battle." Pang Hu snorted. "Last time, I did not expect the one who attacked was not that hypocrite Nie Renlong, but Han Baxian. I was seriously injured because of a moment of carelessness. I will not make this mistake again." With that, Pang Hu turned and left, leaving Chu Xiu to pour himself a cup of wine and drink by himself. Looking out the window at the snowy scenery, Chu Xiu's eyes were even colder than the wind and snow of the northern lands. The enemy was in the light while he was in the dark. This time, as long as there were no accidents, Nie Donglu would not be able to escape. At this time, Nie Donglu, who was far away in Liaodong, suddenly felt a chill around his body, as if he was being targeted by something terrifying. Nie Donglu shook his head to get rid of this feeling. At this time, someone from the morgue delivered some information. At first, Nie Donglu thought that some force had found more warriors from Qilian village and killed them to claim credit. However, after reading the contents, Nie Donglu was so angry that he tore the information into shreds. Nie Donglu was so angry that he tore it up. These idiots. The information said that the forces in the alliance had attacked without permission, using the Qilian village bandits as an excuse to attack some forces in the north. Liaodong County is such a big territory, but it's not enough for them to digest. These idiots actually went to the north to cause trouble. What are they trying to do? Nie Donglu waved his hand and said, "Go find me the leaders of those families who did not follow the rules." A few days later, the heads of the 6 forces came to Nie Donglu's place. Among them was Miao Chunmao. In fact, this matter was instigated by Miao Chunmao from the beginning. Chu Xiu only gave Miao Chunmao one mission, and that was to instigate the other martial arts forces to attack the north. In fact, Miao Chunmao did not need to instigate them. The leaders of the other forces were already tempted. The north was not the territory of the fluttering snow city, so what if they occupied some of it? Now that they were not alone, they were with the morgue. Why would they be afraid of the fluttering snow city? With this mentality, this group of people was provoked by Miao Chunmao and started to act first and report later. Even they themselves did not realize that Miao Chunmao was provoking them. Nie Donglu looked at the 6 people in front of him and said with a gloomy expression, "Who allowed you to invade the north? Do you know that this will anger the fluttering snow city?" Everyone present looked at each other, and one of them said hesitantly, "Young master, it's not necessary, right? The north is so big, can the fluttering snow city control all of it?" Nie Donglu snorted coldly and said, "It's better to be safe than sorry. If the fluttering snow city finds out about this, it will definitely cause a misunderstanding. Our current target is not the fluttering snow city, so why bother making things difficult for them? This matter will be dropped for now. But from now on you can no longer act first and report later, and cross the border to the north." Although in terms of status, Nie Donglu was much higher than the heads of the families present, in terms of seniority, he was still a junior in the pugilistic world. Nie Donglu also had to protect his own reputation, so it was not appropriate for him to start reprimanding the heads of the families now. He could only remind them. Although the people present agreed verbally, they did not take it seriously in their hearts. Back then, they were willing to join the Loyalty Manor Alliance because they wanted to find a backer and not worry about being swallowed up by it. Now they were considered people of the Loyalty Manor Alliance, but in the end, Nie Donglu told them not to provoke the fluttering snow city. No matter how they looked at it, this action seemed a little cowardly, and this made the people present somewhat unhappy. After they left, the people present looked at each other, and someone asked, "Since the young master has given the order, then we can only stop?" Miao Chunmao chuckled and said, Everyone, I don't care if you want to stop, but I won't stop. My Meow family has a weak foundation, different from you. This time, I took the risk to join the Loyalty Manor Alliance, because I want to fight for a future for my Meow family, or else why would I fight to the death with the Chilean stronghold? Now that the benefits are right in front of me, how can I just let it go? The young master is a little too cautious. The north is so big. How can the fluttering snow city control all of it? Moreover, why did we join the Loyalty Manor Alliance? To put it bluntly, first, it's for benefits, and second, it's to find a backer. If the Loyalty Manor Alliance can't even deal with the fluttering snow city, then what's the point of our alliance existing? Why don't we just disband? After saying that, Miao Chunmao directly turned around and left, but at this moment, a trace of cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. These words were what Chu Xiu asked him to say, but if these words were heard by Nie Donglu, he would probably be in trouble. Now Miao Chunmao could only gamble that among these people, there was no one who was loyal to the Loyalty Manor Alliance. In fact, Miao Chunmao's gamble was right. The remaining 5 people's expressions were also uncertain. No one knew what they were thinking. If all 6 of them were to stop, then this matter would be over. But Miao Chunmao still wanted to do it. If they did not do it, then wouldn't they just be watching others reap the benefits? So the rest of them gritted their teeth and prepared to continue. But this time, they had to be more careful, lest they were discovered by the Loyalty Manor Alliance. Anyway, the law did not punish the masses, and they were not the subordinates of the Loyalty Manor Alliance, but the Alliance. Even if they were discovered, there probably would not be any punishment. As a result, under Miao Chunmao's instigation, almost half of the forces in the Morgue Village Alliance secretly invaded the territories in the north and had many conflicts with the local martial arts forces. However, they were all suppressed by their joint forces and did not spread to Nie Donglu. After all, the Loyalty Manor Alliance was now treating them as allies, so it was not easy to investigate. So as long as these people wanted to keep a low profile, it was not a problem for them to temporarily hide. But it was not a problem here. But the news had already spread to the fluttering snow city in the north. The far north Snowfall City stood in the center of the northern lands. It was a huge city that was thousands of feet tall, completely constructed from ice and snow. Its entire body was pure white and transparent, and only the words Snowfall City were written in bold, blood-red letters on the city gates. The fluttering snow city in the north was the private city of the Bai family, and it was not open to the public. In the entire fluttering snow city, only the people of the Bai family and the servants belonged to the Bai family lived. Perhaps it was related to the local climate. In the fluttering snow city in the north, whether it was the Bai family or the other servants, they were extremely martial. Some of the younger generation warriors did not even need the elders to supervise their cultivation. They would fight and kill by themselves, and even when they were a little older, they would take the initiative to go to the northern wilderness to hunt all kinds of wild beasts. At this time, in the fluttering snow city in the north, in the city lord's mansion, a majestic and burly middle-aged man wearing a white tiger skin robe sat on the main seat. There were several warriors below him crying about something. The middle-aged man's expression became more and more unsightly. Finally, the middle-aged man directly slammed the table and shouted angrily, "Loyalty Manor! You have gone too far." Chapter 518. The middle-aged man who slammed the table had a pair of azure blue eyes that were very magnificent and strange. This was a manifestation of the Bai clan's ice soul divine eyes that had been cultivated to the great success stage. In the entire drifting snow city of the Bai clan, there were only a few who had such a cultivation base. This man was the current city lord of the drifting snow city, and also the clan leader of the Bai clan, Flaming Sun Frost by Hantian. At this time, the martial artist who was complaining to him was from some of the martial arts forces in the north. Under the instigation of Miao Chunmao, the forces under the Morgue Village Alliance had invaded their territory and resources. The martial arts forces in the north were actually not too weak. It was just that the entire north was too sparsely populated. Therefore, the number of martial arts forces in the area was also very small. Moreover, the distance between the forces was too large. The closer they were to the periphery, the weaker they were. The drifting snow city of the far north did not have a subordinate relationship with these sections. However, the entire north was the territory of the drifting snow city of the far north. If it was a dispute between some small forces, it would be fine. However, this group of people came in the name of the Morgue village. Wasn't this a provocation to the drifting snow city of the far north? However, the drifting snow city of the far north and the Morgue village were both major forces in the northern Yen land. Once a war broke out, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, it was better for Bai Hantian to be cautious. He comforted the people from the small forces. Everyone, don't worry. The north is the sphere of influence of the drifting snow city of the far north. The Morgue village has broken the rules here. I will naturally seek an explanation from them and give everyone justice. Hearing Bai Hantian's words, the people present could only nod and leave. At this time, the door of the inner hall was pushed open. Bai Qinhu and Bai Wuji, the martial artists of the unity of heaven and man realm of the Bai clan, walked in together. Bai Wuji had not stepped into the martial arts world for a long time. However, at this time, he had already reached the Five Qis origin realm. Moreover, the arrogance from before had completely disappeared. His expression actually became a lot calmer. In the past, during the Divine Weapon Convention, Bai Wuji was severely injured by Shen Bai of the Azure Water Sword sect. That sword not only injured Bai Wuji's body, but also his state of mind. However, it was a blessing in disguise. Without that sword, Bai Wuji would have looked down on all the geniuses in the world. From then on, Bai Wuji began to work hard in closed-door seclusion. He no longer interacted with those scoundrel friends of his. Other than seclusion in the northern Driftsnow city, he would go to the northern wastelands to cultivate, tempering his body and will. This was why his cultivation base had advanced by leaps and bounds, and he had even broken through the 3 flowers as well as the 5 Qis collecting in Origin Realm. Father, what do those people from those powers want to do? Are you here to take advantage of me again? Bai Wuji didn't have a good impression of the major powers in the northern lands. In the past, these powers would often use the excuse of coming to the northern Driftsnow city to pay tribute to them. But in reality, these treasures had no value at all. As one of the major sects in the northern lands, the Driftsnow city naturally couldn't just accept the gifts and not return the gifts. Hence, it was always the Driftsnow city that was on the losing end. With regards to this point, the Driftsnow city of the extreme north didn't express anything. In any case, they were a big city and didn't care about such minor things. They only needed the absolute respect of these sects and powers. However, Bai Wuji's character was somewhat domineering. In his opinion, the Driftsnow city of the extreme north was powerful, so why should they be nice to those powers? If they were not convinced, they could just beat them until they were convinced. Bai Hantian shook his head with a gloomy face and said, "It has nothing to do with them. It's the morgue." As he spoke, Bai Hantian told the story to Bai Qinhu and Bai Wuji. Hearing this, Bai Wuji said coldly, "The morgue has been developing well these years. It seems that they are also very arrogant. How dare they try to wrestle with the Driftsnow city of the extreme north?" Although Bai Qinhu seemed to be impulsive and reckless, he was much calmer than Bai Wuji. Hearing this, Bai Qinhu said in a deep voice, "Master, this matter needs to be treated with caution. After all, it was only the forces of the Morgue Alliance that took action, but the Morgue did not do it themselves. Nie Renlong is shrewd and cunning. They are still pursuing the people of Qilian village. It doesn't seem like Nie Renlong would provoke the Driftsnow city of the extreme north at this time." Bai Wuji snorted coldly and said, "Whether it was Nie Renlong's idea or not, it was done by the people of the Morgue. If it wasn't for the Morgue supporting them, would these small forces dare to provoke the Driftsnow city of the extreme north?" Bai Hantian didn't reply. He just pondered with a gloomy face. At this moment, a servant suddenly came to report that someone wanted to see Bai Hantian. Bai Hantian frowned and said, "Who is that?" The servant hesitated for a moment and said, "That person claims to be from the Yinma clan, and his strength is not weak." Of course, Bai Hantian, the city lord of the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, was not someone who could meet just anyone. If Chu Xiu wanted to meet Bai Hantian, under the premise that he could not use his own identity, The identity of the Inma clan was the most useful. Bai Hantian frowned and said, "The Inma clan?" As the clan master of the Driftsnow city, Bai Hantian naturally knew the difference between the Inma clan and the Bright Demon clan. But because of this, he was surprised that the Inma clan would look for him. In fact, the Driftsnow city of the extreme north was different from the Great Light Temple, which viewed the Demon clan as their mortal enemy. They could not be considered as a pure righteous clan. For the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, when dealing with a force, they would not first care whether the force was righteous or demonic. They would first see if the force had the strength to bring benefits to the Driftsnow city of the extreme north. Bai Hantian knew that the majority of the Inma clan members were extreme lunatics. He did not want to deal with the Inma clan. But now that they had taken the initiative to come to him, if he still refused to meet them, he would really offend them. "Bring him in," Bai Hantian said in a deep voice. After a while, Chu Xiu followed the people of the Bai clan into the main hall. He cupped his hands towards Bai Hantian and said, "Greetings, City Lord Bai." Bai Hantian's eyes shone with a brilliant blue light as he suddenly looked at Chu Xiu. But at the same time, Chu Xiu's mental demon rotation technique was displayed to the extreme. Combined with the power of the soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and extinguishing earth, his powerful mental strength turned into a deep whirlpool, directly strangling the power of Bai Hantian's ice-soul divine eyes. The cultivation methods of the Driftsnow city of the extreme north were very strange. Their cultivation methods mainly focused on close combat, and their martial arts were violent and ferocious. But who would have imagined that the Bai clan's secret cultivation technique would actually contain a spiritual secret technique, like the Ice Soul Divine Eyes? This also caused many people to suspect that the Ice Soul Divine Eyes wasn't a cultivation technique of the Bai clan at all, and they had obtained it from somewhere else. As there was only one mental secret technique, the Bai clan of the drifting snow city in the far north would naturally not treat it as their main cultivation technique. Therefore, when it came to the strength of mental energy, although Bai Hantian was a martial Dao grandmaster, he was still no match for the current Chu Xiu. Retracting his mental strength, Chu Xiu laughed in a hoarse voice and said, "The Ice Soul Divine Eyes really lives up to its name, but I'm still a guest. City Lord Bai, are you using the Ice Soul Divine Eyes to entertain your guests?" Bai Hantian said coldly, "Although the Driftsnow city of the extreme north is hospitable, guests must also abide by the rules. Wearing a mask, disguising your aura, and coming in secretly is not the way of a guest." Chu Xiu cupped his hands in obeisance and said, "City Lord Bai, please forgive me. It's just that my identity is sensitive, and I don't want to expose it. If I were to remove my mask today, there would be no point in talking between us." Bai Hantian snorted coldly, but did not say anything else. People of Bai Hantian's status were well aware of the affairs of the Inma clan. He also knew that there were many members of the Inma clan lying in ambush in the Jianghu. During the day, these people might be heroes of the righteous path or disciples of the major sects, but at night, they would become remnants of the diabolism. Many people in the Jianghu knew about these matters, but not many people would investigate wantonly because it was not worth it. The members of the Inma clan were too well hidden. Even if they were to investigate wantonly, they might not be able to find them. If this group of people wanted to hide, then let them. After all, it would be difficult to achieve anything with their little tricks in the dark. As long as the diabolism did not produce another Dugu Weiwei, then this group of rats in the dark would not be able to stir up any waves. There was only one Dugu Weiwei in the Jianghu for thousands of years. How could there be another one so easily? The tides of the world were rising and falling. Now was not the time for this group of people from the diabolism to show their faces. Therefore, Bai Hantian only snorted coldly, and did not force Chu Xiu to reveal his true face. He asked coldly, "The Inma clan and I mind our own business. Why are you looking for me?" Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "To tell you the truth, I am not actually representing the Inma clan. I am here on behalf of the Chilean Stockade." There was a strange look in Bai Hantian's eyes as he said, "Chilean Stockade? The Chilean Stockade is actually colluding with the Inma clan? If this is the case, you should leave as soon as possible. My northern fluttering snow city has a grudge with the Chilean Stockade." Moreover, the Chilean stockade is about to be strangled by the Morgue village. What else is there to talk about? In the past, the Northern Yen Imperial Court had united with the Northern Yen martial arts world to kill the Northern 36 bandits. Among them, the Northern Fluttering Snow City had contributed the most. Who asked the Northern Fluttering Snow City to be located in the Northern lands? Therefore, strictly speaking, the Northern Fluttering Snow City and the Chilean stockade also had a grudge. Chu Xiu said lightly. The grudge is already in the past. Even the Chilean stockade is no longer in their hearts. What are you so conflicted about, Governor Bai? And this time, I am not only here for the Chilean stockade. The Morgue village is currently in the limelight. As far as I know, they are not only satisfied with occupying Liaodong County and destroying the Chilean stockade. I am afraid that even the northern lands is their target. Bai Hantian squinted at Chu Xiu and said, It seems that there are some things that you are aware of. That is why you are so eager to sow discord? However, there is no point in trying to sow discord. The ones who took action were the forces under the Morgue Village Alliance, not the Morgue Village itself. We are all from the Northern Yen sections. Why would the Northern Fluttering Snow City fight to the death with the Morgue Village over such a small matter? As long as the Morgue Village gives an explanation, this matter will be considered over. You are trying to sow discord between the Northern Fluttering Snow City and the Morgue Village. Do you think I am an idiot? Chapter 519. Both the Morgue and the Northern Drifting Snow City belonged to the Northern Yen sects, and the distance between them was not too far. Usually, there would be some friction between the Morgue and the Northern Drifting Snow City. However, this was very normal and the friction was not serious. Both sides had been restraining themselves. It was the same even now. Even if Bai Hantian was angry that the Morgue had crossed the line and caused trouble, he would not be provoked by Chu Xiu into fighting to the death with the Morgue. Chu Xiu smiled and said, City Lord Bai, I'm not trying to sow discord. You want peace but the Morgue doesn't. The Northern Drifting Snow City has been around for thousands of years, and it's past the time for crazy expansion. The most important thing is to protect their own foundation, and then gradually expand. However, the Morgue had only been established for a few decades, and Nie Renlong wanted to lay a solid foundation for the Morgue before he died. To be more precise, the Morgue needed to expand now. Believe me, this is not a misunderstanding. If you don't believe me, City Lord Bai, you can go and ask the people at the Morgue and see if they're willing to hand over those who broke the rules to you. If the Morgue really doesn't have such intentions, then City Lord Bai can just think that I'm trying to sow discord and kick me out at any time. However, if what I said is true, then I hope City Lord Bai can make preparations and nip the Morgue's ambitions in the bud as soon as possible. At this time, if you and I join forces, the Northern Drifting Snow City will not lose out. After saying that, Chu Xiu did not say anything else. He directly left his current residence to Bai Hantian and turned to leave. He had no intention to sow discord. Behind him, Bai Hantian's expression did not change. Although he would not be so easily provoked by Chu Xiu, he also did not understand the current situation in the Morgue manner. Hence, Bai Hantian decided to meet Nie Renlong to find out what he wanted. However, what Bai Hantian did not know was that if he met Nie Renlong according to Chu Xiu's instructions, the two of them would most likely end up parting on bad terms. If it were not for Chu Xiu, Bai Hantian would have sent someone of Bai Qinhu's level to negotiate with the Morgue village instead of going there himself. But now, with Chu Xiu's words, Bai Hantian couldn't help but want to take the initiative to take a look and see what the Loyalty Manor was up to. When two martial Dao Grand Masters discussed these things together, they would either succeed or fail. Both of them were people who cared about their reputation. Once they met, there was no turning back. Moreover, Chu Xiu knew that the Morgue would most likely not be able to come up with an explanation that Bai Hantian wanted. Regardless of who was right or wrong, as long as Nie Renlong decided to take a step back in front of Bai Hantian, his so-called Morgue alliance would immediately become unstable. It was an alliance that had just been established a few days ago. Everyone could only fight battles that went well, and only see benefits. Once they encountered a setback, the consequences would be dire. After Chu Xiu left, Bai Wuji snorted softly and said, I think that the people from Diabolism are right. The Morgue village should be suppressed, or else the Nia father and son would not even know their surnames. Ever since Nia Donglu became Han Baxian's disciple, he became more and more high-profile. The Morgue village also began to show a strong aggressiveness. If we join forces with Pang Hu's Chilean village, we can really deal a heavy blow to the Morgue village. Bai Wuji's relationship with Nia Donglu had never been good. Bai Wuji's ranking on the Longhu leaderboard was not as high as Nia Dongliu's. However, in the northern Yan region, Bai Wuji's reputation was not inferior to Nia Dongliu's. But after Bai Wuji was seriously injured by Shen Bai's sword, he went into closed-door training, while Nia Donglu became the disciple of the northern Yan martial artist Han Baxian. So, the gap between their reputations was huge. Even in the northern Yan region, most people thought that Bai Wuji was not as good as Nia Donglu. Bai Wuji was seriously injured by Shen Bai last time. He was not as arrogant as before, but he still thought that he was not inferior to Nia Donglu. He was not as good as Shen Bai and Chu Xiu, who had crippled Shen Bai. How could he not be better than Nia Donglu, who only knew how to plot in the dark? Bai Hantian waved his hand and said, Wuji, sometimes you are too impulsive. There are times when it is necessary to be radical, and times when it is necessary to be cautious. Now is not the time to be radical. I will personally go to the Morgue village to discuss this matter with Nia Renlong. Nia Renlong is not an idiot. I believe he will give me an explanation. Hearing Bai Hantian's words, Bai Wuji and Bai Qinhu did not speak. Bai Hantian had been in charge of the northern floating snow city for so many years. He naturally had his own plans. Liaodong County, in a large mansion in a small town near the northern lands. This place was originally the temporary hiding place of the Chilean stockade, but it was recently discovered by the Morgue village. After the Morgue village killed the remnants of the Chilean stockade, this place became the Morgue village's temporary residence. At this time, in the attic of the mansion, Nia Renlong was sitting by the window, wearing a white fox fur coat. There was a pot of tea on the table, enjoying the snowy scenery outside. Nia Renlong entered the Jianghu when he was in his teens, experiencing the dangers of the Jianghu, scheming and killing. It took him half his life to build the Morgue village. Along the way, there had been people who had betrayed Nia Renlong. Of course, Nia Renlong had also betrayed others. Gratitude and resentment, right and wrong, had long been unclear. That young hero, Nia Renlong, who had sworn to uphold justice in the righteous village, had long since died. The only one who was alive now was the scheming village chief of the righteous village. Staring at the falling snowflakes outside the window, Nia Renlong held the teacup in his hand but did not drink. He did not know how long it had been since he was so free. This time, Nia Renlong only controlled the overall situation of the battle against the Northern Land's 36 bandits. Some of the details were all handled by Nia Donglu. Although Nia Renlong was not old, he was not young either. Therefore, he had to let Nia Donglu completely control the Morgue village while he was still alive. He had to have enough prestige in the Jianghu, so that the Morgue village could really take root in the northern Yan, and continue to exist for thousands of years. Fortunately, his son was good enough. At least for now, it seemed that Nia Donglu had done well enough, even beyond his imagination. At present, the young talents in the Jianghu, whether it was Zhang Qingzhen, Zhong Xian or Fang Qishao, all relied on their own talent to reach this stage. Only Chu Xiu could be considered to have risen from the wilderness. Nia Donglu did not have such talent, but Nia Renlong did not care. In his opinion, some things were 70% man and 30% God. If he did not fight, even if he had 30% God's will, he would still be frustrated. Nia Renlong thought that when he was young, he was also a penniless, stupid boy from the wilderness. Now, did he not become the leader of the Morgue village of the 6 gangs? Nia Donglio's starting point was much higher than his. His son's future achievements should also be higher than his. At this moment, there was a sound of people coming upstairs. Nia Donglio's expression was a little gloomy. Just as he sat in front of Nia Renlong and was about to say something, Nia Renlong waved his hand and poured a cup of tea for Nia Donglu. In a deep voice he said, "Don't panic. Every time something big happens, you have to be calm. The sky has not fallen, so why panic? Drink a cup of tea and speak slowly. Remember, if you are in charge of the morgue village in the future, do not show this expression in front of anyone. Hide your joy and anger in your heart, and not show it on your face. Nya Donglu nodded and finished his tea. Then he said coldly, Father, those people really need to be punished. I've already told them not to cross the border and go to the northern lands, but they're still doing it in secret. They really deserve to be killed. Nya Renlong also frowned and stroked his beard. It's a bit difficult. Benefits are at the front. Not to mention you, even if it was me, these people might not listen. The alliance has just been formed, and it was my morgue village who invited them to join. These people are a bit arrogant because they are spoiled. However, this matter cannot be done forcefully. If they are my subordinates, you can kill one or two of them as a warning to others. But these people are not my subordinates yet. Don't talk about killing them. If you take a hard stance, it will cause people's hearts to waver. For now, send people to keep an eye on them, and find a chance to make some noise to warn them. Don't let them go too far. Nya Donglu nodded. Just now when he said these people should be killed, he was actually just saying it out of anger. He also knew that this group of people could not be killed now. Just as Nya Donglu was about to say something, a heroic voice suddenly rang out. Brother Nya, since you are in Liaodong, why don't you come to my northern fluttering snow city as a guest? Are you looking down on me? As the voice fell, a figure wearing a white tiger skin cloak leaped up to the second floor. He was tall and sturdy with azure blue eyes. It was Bai Hantian. Seeing Bai Hantian come, Nya Renlong and Nya Donglu cursed at the same time. They guessed that he was here for this matter. However, Nya Renlong's expression did not change. He still smiled and said, Brother Bai, please don't be offended. My morgue village has been too busy recently, so I can't find the time. When I have time, I will definitely pay a visit to the northern fluttering snow city. Bai Hantian's smile disappeared. Too many things? I know that you are busy invading my territory in the northern lands, right? Nya Renlong smiled bitterly. Brother Bai, you misunderstood. These things were caused by some of the forces under the Morgue Village Alliance. I was just talking to Donglu about this matter. I will find a chance to restrain them. Seeing that Nya Renlong did not hide anything, Bai Hantian's expression became a little better. He nodded and said, Since Brother Nya has said so, then I will not pursue this matter any further. Hand over the people in your alliance, so that I can go back and answer to the martial arts forces in the northern lands. This matter will be over. However, when Nya Renlong heard this, his expression suddenly changed. Chapter 520. Nya Renlong was actually someone who followed the rules of the pugilistic world. It was precisely because he liked to scheme that he followed the rules. People who didn't follow the rules usually didn't need to scheme. Just like Chen Qingdi, if he was unhappy with something, he could just throw a punch. This time, the people from the morgue had crossed the line. Logically speaking, he should be the one to hand them over and punish them, but this time he couldn't. Previously, Nya Renlong told Nya Donglu not to make a big deal out of this. The morgue alliance was still very fragile. If something went wrong, it would fall apart. Nya Renlong knew very well why this group of people joined the righteous manor. After the alliance stabilized, Nya Renlong could do whatever he wanted to them. By then, they wouldn't be able to leave the morgue alliance. But now, no matter how big a mistake they made, Nya Renlong had to protect them. At this moment, Bai Hantian saw Nya Renlong's expression, and recalled what Chu Xiu had said before. The smile on Bai Hantian's face gradually disappeared. He coldly said, Why Manor Lord Nya doesn't intend to hand them over? You don't intend to give an explanation to my drifting snow city? Hearing Bai Hantian address him as Manor Lord Nya instead of Brother Nya, Nya Renlong hurriedly said, Brother Bai, that's not what I meant. This is just a misunderstanding. They are all members of my alliance. If I were to hand them over now, where would the prestige of the alliance go? So my morgue is willing to compensate you in other ways. As long as Brother Bai is satisfied, it's fine. Bai Hantian coldly snorted and said, Your morgue wants prestige, but my drifting snow city doesn't? Cut the crap, I don't want anything else from your morgue. I only want those people who acted recklessly. Are you going to hand them over or not? Nie Renlong frowned. Based on his understanding of Bai Hantian, he shouldn't be so overbearing. But now Nie Renlong could only be a little more forceful and said, Brother Bai, it's not that I don't want to hand them over, but I can't. How about this, after I'm done here, I will personally bring the items to your drifting snow city to apologize. What do you think? On the other side, Bai Hantian was also frowning. The more Nie Renlong refused to hand over the man, the more suspicious he became. Based on Nie Renlong's personality, he should not have refused such a request. But now, Nie Renlong's attitude was unyielding. This was clearly not in line with Nie Renlong's usual style. This made Bai Hantian suspicious. Could it be that the morgue was really going to make a move against the northern lands? Bai Hantian snorted coldly and said, Good. Villa Master Nie is indeed loyal. However, even if you are loyal to the members of your Loyalty Villa Alliance, the Northern Fluttering Snow City must also be responsible for the martial arts forces of the northern lands. This matter is not over. After saying that, Bai Hantian's body moved and in an instant, he had already leaped out of the loft, disappearing into the snowstorm. Nie Renlong sighed. I wonder what kind of medicine Bai Hantian ate. His attitude is actually so impulsive. This time around, we have offended the Drift Snow City of the extreme north. Nie Donglu said in a deep voice. Then father, should we be more vigilant against the Drift Snow City of the extreme north? Nie Renlong waved his hand and said, Don't worry. For such a small matter, the Drift Snow City of the extreme north will not take action. We are not attacking the disciples of the Drift Snow City. But looking at Bai Hantian's attitude, I am afraid he will come looking for trouble. It is better to be more careful than not. Nie Donglu nodded, but he still felt that something was not right. It should be said that after the people of Qilian Stockade retreated, he felt that something was wrong. It was as if someone was manipulating everything. It was a very strange feeling, and Nie Donglu could not find any evidence. This was only his own feeling. Under the premise that there was no evidence, Nie Donglu did not dare to speak recklessly. Now, Nie Donglu could only hope that his feeling was wrong, that he had been too busy recently, and that it was an illusion. After returning to the Drift Snow City of the extreme north, Bai Hantian's face was gloomy. Bai Wuji saw that Bai Hantian's expression was a little strange. He hurriedly asked, Father, is the morgue village not willing to hand over the person? Bai Hantian nodded and said, That demonic brat was right. The morgue's attitude is a little strange. Even if the morgue doesn't want to attack the northern lands this time, I'm afraid they have other plans. Bai Wuji heard this and said coldly, Then father, what are you waiting for? If people don't offend us, we won't offend them. Since the morgue village dares to cause trouble in our northern lands, then I, the Drift Snow City of the extreme north, will let them see who is the king of the northern lands. A force that has been rooted in a land for a long time. This in itself represented a kind of foundation and strength. The full name of the Drift Snow City was Drift Snow City. The reason why the outside world called it the Drift Snow City of the extreme north was because of the foundation that the Drift Snow City had been rooted in the northern lands for thousands of years. The Drift Snow City represented the northern lands, and the northern lands represented the Drift Snow City. Therefore, forces like the Drift Snow City of the extreme north were very sensitive to their own territory. You can come if you want, but you have to inform them beforehand. If you break the rules and cross the line, the enmity between the two sides would be formed. Bai Hantian said solemnly, Don't be in a hurry. Go find that kid from the Hidden Devil clan. I want to see what he wants to cooperate with us. Also, Wuji, can you be a little calmer? After being in seclusion for such a long time, haven't you tempered your temperament? Bai Wuji lowered his head and didn't speak. Previously, after being injured by Shen Bai's sword, Bai Wuji's character was less arrogant, but he was more radical in handling matters. Just like this time, if Bai Wuji was in charge of this matter, and the morgue village dared to provoke the Drift Snow City of the extreme north, he could just directly take action. Perhaps Shen Bai's sword strike had left a very deep impression on him. Now Bai Wuji's way of doing things was very simple and direct. He loved to use strength to solve all problems. Chu Xiu did not go far, but stayed directly outside the Driftsnow city of the extreme north. When he saw Baihantian again, Chushio smiled and said, "Seems like City Lord Bai, you still haven't gotten the person. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here again." Baihantian stared at Chushio, his eyes emitting a blue glow. He said slowly, "I didn't get the person, but why do I feel that something is wrong? The ones who benefit in the end are the people from your Chilean stockade. Are you the one who instigated this?" As the city lord of the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, Baihantian was certainly not an idiot. Although he had no evidence, from Baihantian's point of view, the ones who would benefit in the end would definitely be the people from Chilean stockade. It was originally a battle between the Morgue village and the Chilean stockade, but in the end, the Driftsnow city of the extreme north was the innocent party involved. Baihantian felt that something was amiss. Chushio smiled and said, "City Lord Bai, I'm not the one who instigated this. Even if I denied it, you wouldn't believe me. Even if you insist on it, you have no evidence. But look at the Morgue village's route of action and you'll know. The Morgue village wants to expand, not to the west or south, but to the north. They say that their target is only the Chilean stockade, and that they only want to kill the remaining bandits. Do you believe that?" Baihantian remained silent. He and Nie Renlong had known each other for more than 20 years. He knew very well that the owner of the Morgue village, Nie, was a person who would not do anything unless it was for his own benefit. Everything he did was either for his own benefit or for his reputation. The Morgue village would not be so kind as to help the imperial court eradicate the remaining bandits. Chushio continued, "So, even if you, City Lord Bai, chose not to do anything in this matter and chose to bear with it, once the Morgue village has completely stabilized its power in Liaodong and become neighbors with the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, can you guarantee that there won't be any conflicts? How can you allow others to snore next to your bed?" The Great Light Temple can be neighbors with the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, because the difference between the two is huge. But the difference between the Driftsnow city of the extreme north and the Morgue village is not that huge. Chushio's previous provocation and threats did not move the Driftsnow city of the extreme north. But his words, "How can you allow others to snore next to your bed?" made Baihantian's heart tremble. In the past, the Driftsnow city of the extreme north was in a very comfortable geographical location. As the neighbor of the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, the Great Light Temple's power was too strong. It was so strong that it was not on the same level as the Driftsnow city of the extreme north. It was impossible for the Driftsnow city of the extreme north to feel threatened. Although the extreme evil sect of the Northern Plains was a demonic sect, they kept a very low profile and did not have any conflicts with the Driftsnow city of the extreme north. The Liaodong County in the east did not have any forces that could make a move. The Chilean stockade could only be considered half of it. The bandits' foundation was too shallow and could not be considered a force at all. So all these years, the Driftsnow city of the extreme north had never worried about any external problems. But if the Congregation Manor became neighbors with the Driftsnow city of the extreme north, Nie Renlong was not the kind of person who would submit to others. When the time came, the result of the conflict between the two sides could be imagined. Chushio looked at Baihantian and said faintly, "City Lord Bai, I have a habit. I always like to nip danger in the bud. It's simple and saves effort. Sometimes, I would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. I think this is a very good habit. What do you think, City Lord Bai?" Baihantian was silent for a moment and finally said, "I want to meet with Peng Hu." There was no expression on Chushio's masked face. But under the mask, a smile appeared on Chushio's face. Of course. Even if Chushio represented the Hidden Devil clan, he was still a martial artist at the unity of heaven and man realm. Baihantian would not be at ease to discuss such an important matter with Chushio. Only Peng Hu had the right to speak to him on equal terms. Now that Baihantian was ready to meet with Peng Hu, it proved that the matter had been settled. Although the two of them had agreed to meet in the north, it was not in the Driftsnow city of the extreme north. Peng Hu did not trust Baihantian. But when Baihantian and Peng Hu met again, both of them sighed. Who would have thought that the two of them, who had fought to the death in the past, would one day join forces? Chapter 521. By Han Tian and Pang, who had known each other for a long time. They had even fought against each other several times. At that time, most of the martial arts forces in the northern Yen had joined forces to kill the 36 northern bandits. The northern floating snow city was one of the main forces, so the two of them were no strangers. However, when they met again, Pang, who no longer felt any hostility towards Bai Hantian. One of the reasons was that the imperial court was the one who took the lead in wiping out the 36 northern lands bandits. The second reason was that Pang, who had also thought it through. The 36 northern lands bandits had been too high profile. If he was in the position of any other northern Yen sect, he would not be able to hold back and take action. However, although Pang, who could ignore the enmity, it did not mean that he would be nice to Bai Hantian. When he saw Bai Hantian, Pang, who could not help but sneer. Bai Hantian, weren't you clamoring to kill us bandits and roving bandits? Why are you in a hurry to cooperate now? Bai Hantian also sneered. It's your Chilean village that's in a hurry to cooperate, okay? Don't you know who it was that was almost exterminated by the righteous manner? Seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel again, Chu Xiu quickly said, calm down, both of you. Since we want to join forces, let's put aside our previous grievances. Otherwise, it will be embarrassing if we start fighting before we even see the enemy. Bai Hantian and Pang, who snorted at the same time. Pang, who pointed at Chu Xiu and said, my Chilean village will be under Master Lin Ye's command. You can talk to Master Lin directly. Hearing Pang Hu's words, Bai Hantian was a little surprised. He did not expect that everything in Chilean village would be under the command of this demonic brat. He had originally thought that this brat was just a lobbyist. However, at this moment, Bai Hantian suddenly remembered something. He suddenly looked at Chu Xiu and said, you're Lin Yi, the Lin Yi from the Yinma clan. The one who killed Xiahou Wujiang from the Xiahou clan? Chu Xiu nodded and said, yes. Pang Hu asked curiously, is Master Lin very famous in Jianghu? Bai Hantian looked at Pang Hu speechlessly. Was this guy really stupid, or was he just pretending? The person he invited had handed over the authority to command Chilean village. In the end, Pang Hu's understanding of Lin Yi was not even as good as his. Was this guy a joke? Actually, Pang Hu really did not know about these. After all, Chilean Stockade Village was just a bandit organization. They did not have that much information. Of course, they would not be able to find out some secrets about diabolism. In any case, he only knew that Lin Yi was sent by Mei Qinglian, and that Mei Qinglian would not harm him. Pang Hu only needed to know this point, and that was enough. As for Bai Hantian, as the city lord of the northern Driftsnow city, although he didn't participate in the previous great war between the righteous and demonic sects on floating Jade Mountain, news of the resurgence of the demonic path had spread throughout the pugilistic world. Lin Ye's identity had also entered the eyes of many righteous sections. Yinma clan's clan leader, Yinma sect and Phaseless Demon sect are very fond of you. Even the Yinma clan's clan leader, Jade-faced Demon Wei Shuya, thinks highly of you. The Yinma clan's clan leader, Yinma sect and Phaseless Demon sect are very fond of you. Even the Yinma clan's clan leader, Jade-faced Demon Wei Shuya, thinks highly of you. During the Yinma clan leader's clan leader, you easily killed the Xiahou clan's most outstanding disciple, Xiahou Wujiang. I'm afraid your strength is enough to rank in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. Pang Hu looked at Bai Hantian and did not say anything. Mei Qinglian had said that Lin Ye's strength was enough to rank in the top 5 of the Longhu leaderboard. Chu Xiu smiled and said, it's just a title. Governor Bai. You don't have to praise me. Compared to you, I'm still a junior. Bai Hantian did not say anything. If the information was correct, this was a young talent that the Yinma clan had focused on grooming. Although he was a junior now, after a period of time, he might be on the same level as him. Bai Hantian waved his hand and said, since Chilean village has entrusted everything to you, young Master Lin, then please tell us your plan. Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, with Governor Bai's participation, my plan is actually very simple. It's nothing more than luring the enemy and killing them. However, Nie Renlong and his son are cautious people. For luring the enemy, we need to add a heavy bait. I'll have to trouble you to be the bait, Chief Pang. The people from the Village of Honor know that Chief Pang is the leader of the Chilean village. That's why the Village of Honor wants to kill you the most. The last time you fought with the Stone General, Hanbashian, you suffered some injuries. Although your injuries have healed, you should find a chance to pretend that your injuries have not healed. You can recuperate somewhere, and lure the Village of Honor to go all out. We only need to lie in ambush nearby. Bai Hantian frowned. Anyone could think of such a simple trick. However, the key question was, would the Village of Honor fall for it? Whether it was Nie Renlong or Nie Donglu. Both of them were shrewd people. They wouldn't be fooled so easily. Seeing through Bai Hantian's thoughts, Chu Xiu said lightly, Governor Bai, don't worry. I have people at the Village of Honor. Bai Hantian's heart skipped a beat when he heard Chu Xiu's words. They were obviously on the weaker side. Yet this guy had planted an undercover agent at the Village of Honor? At this time, Bai Hantian also suspected that the Village of Honor had invaded the north. Was it also the work of the undercover agent? However, this thought only appeared in Bai Hantian's mind for a moment before it was thrown to the back of his mind. There was no point in thinking about it now because Bai Hantian had already appeared here. Moreover, the real reason why Bai Hantian decided to take action was the threat of the Village of Honor. Even if the Village of Honor did not invade the north, if the Village of Honor became the neighbor of the drifting snow city in the far north, Bai Hantian could not guarantee that Nie Renlong would develop in peace. Just as Lin Yi had said, it was the simplest and most direct way to kill the danger before it happened. A few days later, in the temporary stronghold of the Village of Honor, Nie Donglu once again heard about the alliance's men disobeying orders and heading to the north without permission. This group of people had committed the same offense again and again. Nie Donglu had reached the limit of his tolerance. So he went to Nie Renlong and said angrily, Father, we should deal with this group of people seriously. If this goes on, where are the rules of the alliance? Nie Renlong's expression was also gloomy as he nodded and said, We can't go on like this. Go and find those people. When Nie Renlong had found Miao Chunmao and the others, before he could reprimand them, Miao Chunmao said excitedly, Villa Master, we found traces of Penghu. Most of the Chilean village's survivors are there. Nie Renlong was stunned when he heard this. He hurriedly asked, Is what you said true? Miao Chunmao hurriedly said, Of course it's true. No wonder we haven't found any traces of the Chilean village's survivors after such a long time. It turns out that they're hiding in the north. Besides, when Senior Han fought with Penghu last time, Penghu was seriously injured. Penghu is in the north collecting some rare spiritual medicine to heal his injuries. No wonder the Chilean village retreated in such a hurry. It turns out that Penghu has not recovered from his injuries. Villa Master, take this opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. Nie Renlong nodded. No wonder Penghu retreated. It turned out that Penghu's injuries were not light. However, Penghu was actually in the north. This was a little tricky. Not long ago, Bai Hantian had just come to find him. If he were to go to the north again and bring so many people with him, it would inevitably cause some misunderstandings. Nie Donglu also said, Father, let's handle this carefully first. Send someone to keep an eye on them. Wait until we understand their strength before we make a move. Hearing Nie Donglu's words, Miao Chunmao became anxious. Lin Yi had asked him to lead the people from the memorial hall to the ambush position. As long as he succeeded, he and the Miao family would be fine. However, Lin Yi had not taught him how to do it in detail. He had to rely on himself. If he failed this mission, then his hiding during this period would be in vain. The Miao family would also be in danger. Miao Chunmao suddenly had an idea. He suddenly said, Villa Master, we can't wait any longer. When we came back, we left a few warriors behind to guard the place. However, I neglected that the people left behind to guard the place are too weak. They might be discovered by Penghu at any time. If they didn't keep their mouths shut and leaked the news, Penghu and the others would have already moved. Nie Renlong frowned and said, Since you know that they are from Chilean village, why didn't you send some warriors with enough strength to guard there? Miao Chunmao put on an ashamed expression and said, I didn't think it through. When we came back, I realized that I did something wrong. Nie Renlong frowned and said, If that's the case, then immediately gather people and prepare to make a move. Oh right, Donglu, go and invite Brother Han here. This time, I'll have to trouble Brother Han to make another move. Even though that Pang Hu is still heavily injured, it's still better for us to be a little more cautious. Nia Donglu nodded and went to invite Han Baxian over. In all fairness, his master treated him very well. When the memorial hall invited him, Han Baxian did not hesitate and immediately came to help. However, Nia Donglu did not know why there was still a haze in his heart. It made him feel a little uneasy. At this time, outside the small northern city of Shuilian City, the memorial hall and dozens of warriors from the alliance had all arrived and surrounded the entire city. Shuilian City was very small. It was just an ordinary dirt city, the kind where you could see from the south to the north at a glance. The Morgue Village Alliance had only sent out less than 10,000 people. However, these 10,000 people were the elites of the Morgue Village and the Alliance. The weakest among them was in the innate realm. It was very easy for them to kill the people from Qilian Village. At this time, beside Nie Renlong stood a tall, burly middle-aged man in black armor. The burly middle-aged man's aura was vigorous and violent. His power was even stronger than Nie Renlong's. This person was Nie Donglio's master, the Northern Yin martial artist, Stone General, Han Baxian. Chapter 522. The fact that the Stone General Han Baxian had accepted Nie Donglu as a disciple had once surprised all the warriors in the Northern Yin region. That was because Han Baxian and Nie Donglu were obviously two different people. How could such people become master and disciple? In fact, Han Baxian did not have such complicated reasons for accepting Nie Donglu as a disciple. Han Baxian had entered the imperial court before venturing out into the world. He was simple and direct, but he had also been tricked countless times. That was why he was looking for a successor this time. He wanted someone with a more flexible mind. Someone who would not be easily tricked by others. Nie Donglu was talented and smart, which suited Han Baxian's requirements very well. Of course, there were countless people in the world who met these two requirements. Nie Donglu was chosen by Han Baxian as a disciple because of another special characteristic of him, which was his refusal to admit defeat. In the eyes of Nie Donglio's enemies like Chu Xiu, Nie Donglu was too calculative and somewhat disgusting. He did not even have much of a warrior spirit. However, it was undeniable that Nie Donglio's will was extremely tough. He had been defeated countless times in his life, and he had suffered a few losses at the hands of Chu Xiu. In the end, Nie Donglu did not feel the slightest bit discouraged, and was able to stand up again. He was not like Lin Kaiyun of Sword King City, who had been completely crippled after being defeated once. Nie Donglio's characteristics were very similar to Han Baxian's. In his early years, Han Baxian did not rely on his talent to conquer the world. He had also suffered defeat after defeat to achieve his current status. Nie Donglu was able to become Han Baxian's disciple mainly because of this. At that moment, Han Baxian rubbed his fist and said, "What are you waiting for? Let's just directly make a move. I actually want to exchange blows with that Pang Hu again. I was still in the Northern Yen army when we were annihilating the 36 Northern Bandits. However, I didn't have the chance to take action at that time. I didn't expect that Pang Hu, who wasn't that famous among the 36 Northern Bandits, would actually be so powerful. He escaped last time when I was caught off guard. This time, he won't be able to slip away so easily." The last time Han Baxian fought Pang Hu, it could be said that both of them were caught off guard. Pang Hu did not expect Han Baxian to make a move, nor did Han Baxian expect Pang Hu to be so strong. However, Pang Hu had stirred up Han Baxian's fighting spirit. He couldn't wait to strike again. Nie Donglu frowned but did not notice anything amiss. He looked at Nie Renlong and waited for Nie Renlong to nod. Nie Donglu then said in a deep voice, "Let's do it. Hide your breath and don't let the people from Qilian Village discover us. This time, we will not let a single person from Qilian Village go." Everyone present nodded and stealthily headed in the direction Miao Chunmao pointed. The place that Miao Chunmao was pointing at was a huge mansion in Shuilian City. It was big enough to accommodate hundreds of people. The elites of Chilean Stockade Village were lying in ambush here, keeping a low profile and recuperating. However, when everyone was about to hide in front of the mansion, Nie Renlong stopped in his tracks, and his expression suddenly became extremely ugly. Nie Donglu was stunned at first, but then his expression changed as well. He also felt that something was amiss. The long street around the mansion was very quiet, extremely quiet. The surroundings were empty, and there was not even a single pedestrian. It was very strange. Of course, this could also be understood as Chilean Village buying the entire street to ensure their concealment, to prevent outsiders from recognizing them. However, in reality, this behavior was even more deceptive. Buying an entire street to hide, because they had nothing better to do. Was there anything more obvious and idiotic than this? The people from Chilean Village were not idiots. They would not do such an idiotic thing. Hence, the only explanation was that there was something wrong. Whether it was Nie Renlong or Nie Donglu, they all subconsciously looked at Miao Chunmao because he was the first to discover this place. However, at this moment, they realized that Miao Chunmao, who had always been very active, was now very low-key. He was actually walking at the back of the group. Nie Renlong and Nie Donglio's expressions darkened. Both of them were about to order everyone to retreat, but at this moment, the long street shone with the light of an icy blue formation. Countless chi of heaven and earth condensed, turning into spear-like icicles that pierced towards the people from the Morgue Village Alliance. Ambush! Be careful! Nie Renlong roared, but it was already too late. The icicles were like spears, piercing through almost 30% of the warriors present in an instant. Under the blessing of the formation, the inside of the icicles not only became extremely sharp, but also had the effect of tearing vital energy apart. A moment of carelessness and being killed was a very common thing. The moment the formation was activated, a dense crowd of warriors emerged from the surroundings of the long street and attacked the people from the Morgue Village. Pang, who held a huge scarlet spear in his hand, and brought it down on Han Baxian's head. Its power was like a mountain shattering. The Scarlet Red Gang energy brought with it a scorching aura. When the spear fell, it actually had a bit of the charm of a falling meteorite. Golden Gang energy condensed around Han Baxian. As he put his palms together to form a seal, it was like a giant hammer that smashed down, causing the chi of heaven and earth to explode. Both sides attacked with all their might. The gang energy dissipated and they were evenly matched. The moment Pang, who made his move, Bai Hantian also made his move. Bai Hantian did not use any weapons, but as his palms fell one after another, snowflakes fell from the sky. The dense snowflakes were like the edge of a sword, tearing apart one's gang energy and weakening one's chi and blood. It was very mystical. Heaven and earth revolved in Nie Renlong's hands. Under his control, the power of heaven and earth blocked the snowflakes. Looking at Bai Hantian, Nie Renlong bellowed, "Bai Hantian, are you crazy? How dare you join forces with the Chilean bandits to attack my morgue?" In fact, the moment the formation appeared, Nie Renlong had already suspected that it was the drifting snow city of the far north. This was because the formation was the signature formation of the drifting snow city of the far north, the ice-killing formation. However, Nie Renlong still could not understand. If it was because of what happened before, the drifting snow city of the far north should have no reason to attack his morgue. It was because it was not worth it. In the end, Nie Renlong had guessed wrong. Not only did the drifting snow city of the far north make their move, but they also made their move to take his life. Bai Hantian said expressionlessly, "It's because I'm not crazy that I made my move. Nie Renlong, if you had stayed in your east of Yen province and developed your morgue, I wouldn't have bothered to go against you. But this time, you invaded my north. For this matter, I have to give an explanation to those sects in the north." Although the drifting snow city of the far north made their move because they were afraid of the expansion of the morgue, they could not say so on the surface. Secretly, the drifting snow city of the far north was for their own benefit. But on the surface, the drifting snow city of the far north was seeking justice for the forces under them. For something like building a reputation, it wasn't just limited to the morgue. The drifting snow city of the far north also knew how to do it. Nie Renlong frowned as he blocked the attack. He did not believe Bai Hantian's nonsense. The drifting snow city of the far north was not so magnanimous that they would go against the morgue for the sake of the martial arts forces in their territory. Most importantly, Nie Renlong could not understand how the drifting snow city of the far north had colluded with Pang Hu. One must know that there was no connection between the two, and they even had enmity before. Nie Renlong's heaven and earth cloud hand was unleashed to the extreme. It was not that he was no match for Bai Hantian, but Nie Renlong's mental strength was focused on other parts of the battlefield. The drifting snow city of the far north and the Chilean stockade strength, the Morgue alliance was already at a disadvantage. Not to mention that they had been ambushed by the formation, and lost a large number of their men. Now Nie Renlong no longer had to think about killing the Chilean stockade. He should be thinking about how to escape. Bai Hantian, is the drifting snow city of the far north really going to fight to the death with my morgue? Nie Renlong shouted angrily in a low voice. Bai Hantian shook his head indifferently and said, "Of course not. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to kill you, and I wouldn't be able to destroy your loyalty manor. However, it won't be that easy for you to leave." If Bai Hantian could destroy the morgue, he wouldn't mind being ruthless. However, if he really wanted to fight to the death with Nie Renlong now, it was still unknown if he could do it. The drifting snow city of the far north would also suffer some losses. Therefore, the safest thing now was to inflict heavy damage to the morgue, so that within a decade or even a few decades, the morgue would not dare to have any thoughts of invading the north. Nie Renlong let out a long sigh and said in a low voice, "Bai Hantian, I admit defeat this time. However, I want to know who was the one who defeated me this time." Ever since the Chilean stockade suddenly retreated, something was not right. There was definitely someone secretly plotting this. Who was it? This kind of plotting in the dark is not your style. Pang Hu is a boorish man, he doesn't have the brains to do this. Who was it that schemed against my morgue? The person who schemed against the morgue's people had a simple method, but they had exploited the biggest loophole of the morgue, which was the fragility of the alliance. The drifting snow city of the far north was obviously roped in by someone. However, there was no such person in the Chilean stockade previously. Otherwise, the Chilean stockade would not have sat back and watched as the morgue's alliance killed several of their stockades. A strange look flashed in Bai Hantian's eyes. Although he was now working together with the Chilean stockade, he did not have a good impression of Pang Hu. Therefore, when Nie Renlong asked, Bai Hantian shifted his gaze to the other side and chuckled. "It's that person, the Yinma clan's Devil Path's outstanding talent, Lin Yi. You should have heard of his name." This time, Pang Hu had asked the Yinma clan for help, and the Yinma clan had sent this person. The person who has been fighting with your morgue has not been the Chilean stockade, but this person. Bai Hantian only planned to inflict heavy damage on the morgue's morgue and kill their ambition. As for the rest, he did not care. On the contrary, Bai Hantian was happy to see the morgue's alliance and the Chilean stockade both suffer. Chapter 523. These damn devil cultivators. Nie Renlong looked at Chu Xiu, who was dressed in black and wearing a mask. If Bai Hantian had not stopped him, he would have torn Chu Xiu apart. Only God knew how Pang Hu had colluded with these devil cultivators. If he had known earlier that there was someone else involved, Nie Renlong would have been 100 times more careful. It was because the enemy was in the dark while they were in the light, that they had been tricked so badly. At this time, Chu Xiu didn't care about Nie Renlong's gaze. He was staring at Nie Donglu. In fact, Chu Xiu had wanted to attack Nie Donglu from the beginning, but someone else had beaten him to it. That person was Bai Wuji. Previously, when Bai Wuji and Nie Donglu were both in the innate realm, they had fought a few times. But Bai Wuji didn't have the upper hand. This time, Bai Wuji had been silent for a long time. He didn't think he was any weaker than Nie Donglu. Seeing Bai Wuji rushing towards him with his spear, Nie Donglu said coldly, "Your northern floating snow city played a good trick. You actually joined forces with the Chilean village bandits to attack my memorial village. This time, my memorial village suffered a loss because of a moment of carelessness. We will settle this score in the future." Bai Wuji sneered. "Nie Donglu, why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you still think there will be a future? It's still unknown whether you can leave here alive today." As his voice fell, the spear in Bai Wuji's hand smashed down with a piercing cold wind. The icy chi was bone-chilling, but it was majestic. Nie Donglio's heaven and earth cloud hand was unleashed. With the heaven and earth in his hand, countless strands of astral energy spiraled down like silk threads. Bai Wuji's powerful spear strike was frozen in the air, unable to move even an inch. Bai Wuji's expression changed. How could Nie Donglio's strength be so great? But before Bai Wuji could recover from his shock, Nie Donglio's hands bloomed with dazzling golden chi. He grabbed Bai Wuji's spear with both hands, and a burst of golden astral energy burst out. He swung the spear and sent Bai Wuji flying. Furthermore, Nie Donglu did not stop at all. His fist landed like a blazing sun, ferocious and domineering. This wasn't a technique from the morgue, but Han Baxian's vast Yang Nine Extremes mysterious art. Bai Wuji's eyes shone with a frosty light. He used the Frost Soul Divine Eyes, which went straight for Nie Donglio's head, trying to freeze his nascent soul. However, Nie Donglu was protected by vast Yang energy. Before the Ice Soul Divine Gaze could fully display its power, it was already neutralized by Nie Donglio's vast Yang energy. In terms of power, Han Baxian's vast Yang Nine Extremes mystic art couldn't compare to Chu Xiu's Nine Heavens Fiend Golden Body. In fact, it couldn't even compare to the Great Vajra strength. However, the only advantage of the vast Yang Nine Extremes mysterious art was that it was comprehensive. There was almost no obvious weakness to be found. Nie Donglio's fist came down with unparalleled power, sending Bai Wuji flying and smashing through the surrounding houses. Bai Wuji roared and swung his spear to the limit. Icy astral energy suppressed the soul. With Bai Wuji at the center, it was as if frost was flying in June, extremely cold. However, when facing Nie Donglu, even though Bai Wuji used his full strength, he still couldn't do anything to him. Golden astral energy shone in Nie Donglio's hands. He used the vast Yang Nine Extremes mysterious art to the limit. Bai Wuji, who was also good at close combat, was completely suppressed by Nie Donglu. Furthermore, Nie Donglio's heaven and earth cloud-reaching hands was a combination of hardness and softness. When the two were combined, his strength was clearly far greater than Bai Wuji's. At that moment, Bai Wuji was also filled with a sense of defeat. It was even more severe than when he was defeated by Shen Bai. After all, Shen Bai was just a stranger, while Nie Donglu and Bai Wuji had been fighting since they were children. Now the gap between them was getting bigger and bigger. Bai Wuji roared. The spear in his hand was dyed with a blood-red light. The cold blood condensed and stabbed at Nie Donglu like a dragon. Nie Donglu shook his head and said, "It's no use, Bai Wuji. You've never admitted defeat since you were a child, but do you know what your biggest weakness is? It's that you can't see yourself clearly. I didn't fight you before because I didn't want to engage in meaningless fights. But if we really fight, do you really think you can beat me?" As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Donglio's hand turned upside down. Golden astral energy condensed into a vortex, spiraling and twisting. It actually crushed the spear in Bai Wuji's hand. Bai Wuji coughed up a mouthful of blood and retreated. Nie Donglio's eyes flashed with killing intent. In the past, no matter how much Nie Donglu fought with Bai Wuji, Nie Donglu would control things to a certain extent because he didn't want things to get out of hand. The northern floating snow city and the Morgue village were both major northern Yen sections. At that time, the two sides were not connected yet, so there were no major conflicts. If Nie Donglu had killed Bai Wuji at that time, the northern floating snow city would definitely fight to the death with the Morgue village. But now, the northern floating snow city had joined forces with the Chilean village to trick the Morgue village, causing the Morgue village, a powerful alliance, to suffer heavy losses. The two sides had already become sworn enemies. At this time, Nie Donglu had no intention of holding back. However, at that moment a surge of demonic energy appeared behind Nie Donglu. He turned around abruptly, and a strange Dharma idol formed entirely out of astral energy appeared behind him. The left side was filled with demonic flames, while the right side was shimmering with Buddhist light. The Dharma form's palm descended, and the devil and Buddha merged into one. The powerful force shocked Nie Donglu, and he immediately burst out the strongest power of the vast Yang Nine Extremes mysterious art to resist. Boundless golden astral energy enveloped Nye Donglu, making him look like a small sun. But under Chu Xiu's Mahavajra form, the golden astral energy around Nye Donglu suddenly shattered. Nye Donglu himself spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at the person in front of him in horror. It's him. Nye Donglu recognized the identity of the person in front of him. Of course, he did not recognize Chu Xiu, but Lin Ye's identity. In the past, on the battlefield of the righteous and demonic path on Mount Floating Jade, it was this person who killed Xiahou Wujiang and made Xiahou extremely furious. At this moment, Nye Donglu also understood everything. It was not the Qilian village that had colluded with the northern floating snow city, but the Qilian village that had colluded with the hidden devil clan. But Nye Donglu still vaguely remembered that during the battle of the righteous and demonic path on Mount Floating Jade, this person was only at the Five Qis origin realm. Now he had actually reached the unity of heaven and man realm. And the strength he displayed was so terrifying, it was shocking. After coming to a realization, Nye Donglu did not say a word, but immediately turned around and fled. With Nye Donglio's current strength, he was absolutely confident that he could fight against some unity of heaven and man realm martial artists. But this person in front of him was someone that the hidden devil clan focused on cultivating. When he was in the unity of heaven and man realm, he could probably fight against a martial Dao grandmaster. If Nye Donglu fought him head-on, he would be courting death. However, Nye Donglu did not notice that at this moment, Chu Xiu's eyes were also flashing with a cold murderous intent. The way he looked at him was almost exactly the same as the way Nye Donglu looked at Bai Wuji just now. Chu Xiu and Nye Donglio's enmity had been formed from the beginning. He did not forget how miserable he looked when he was being hunted by the memorial village. Chu Xiu had never been a broad-minded person. He had to take revenge for this. However, after so many times, either the timing was not right, or Nye Donglu was too slippery. Chu Xiu had never found a chance to kill him. This time, Nye Renlong and Han Baxian were entangled, and Nye Donglu was isolated and helpless. It could be said that this was the best time for Chu Xiu to make a move. If Nye Donglu did not die this time, it could only be said that he was also a person with luck, and his luck might even be stronger than Lu Fengxian's. Looking at Nye Donglio's figure, Chu Xiu formed a seal with both hands. His mental energy turned into endless threads, intertwining layer by layer, rushing towards Nye Donglu and wrapping around his primordial spirit. 9 major forms of soul assimilation, soul string web. In the past, when Chu Xiu's mental energy was weak, he could only use the soul string web to gather information. Now that Chu Xiu used the soul string web again, Nye Donglio's figure suddenly stopped. He felt as if his soul was about to be pulled out from his body. Nye Donglu roared. His body was full of bloody light, and he actually burned his qi and blood to completely break free from the soul string web. He was very decisive. Unfortunately, it was still useless. Chu Xiu's figure was already close. He formed a seal with both hands, and a powerful and fierce aura condensed into a prison-suppressing Wisdom King Dharma. Holding the Wisdom King seal, he smashed it down on Nye Donglio's head. The image of the prison-suppressing Wisdom King was extremely powerful. When it landed, even the world's Yuan Qi gave off an explosive sound. It really did have the powerful charm of a Wisdom King suppressing a prison and slaying a devil. In fact, among the Dharma powers of the Great Vajra divine power, the one that Chu Xiu imitated the most was the Mara Vajra form. Because he was a dual cultivator of devil and Buddha, Chu Xiu could use at least 90% of the power of this Dharma idol. After all, the other Dharma idols were condensed by others. It was a little difficult for Chu Xiu to experience their charm. And this prison-suppressing Wisdom King Dharma, Chu Xiu could use 90% of its power and 10% of its charm. This was all thanks to Zongxian. Zongxian was famous in the Jianghu for his Wisdom King seal. However, Zongxian had evolved the simplest Wisdom King seal into countless uses, including the prison-suppressing Wisdom King. When Chu Xiu fought with Zongxian, he had experienced the terror of Zongxian's prison-guarding Akalanatha seal, and had gained some understanding of it. Therefore, he borrowed Zongxian's prison-guarding Akalanatha seal to complete his prison-guarding Akalanatha form. Under the prison-suppressing Wisdom King Dharma, Nye Donglio's qi and blood burned. The heaven and earth cloud hand moved, and the golden stellar energy intertwined with the power of qi and blood. He wanted to block the seal, but under Chu Xiu's prison-suppressing wisdom King Dharma, Nie Dongyu's stellar energy shattered in less than 3 breaths. His qi and blood dissipated, and his arms could not withstand the powerful force. They twisted and completely shattered, and his body was sent flying. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.